Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel once before. Now, the last review that I did from this brewery appeared on the channel a couple of years ago, and these guys are not really that prolific a brewery, it's more than fair to say, but they do some really interesting stuff, and they're very, very unique within the English beer scene. So they're definitely best known for their kind of Belgian style beers, but they have been releasing a few different things recently which are supposed to be very good. Now the beer we're going to have a look at today is of course one of their latest releases. It's a style that I do quite enjoy, one that I don't get to review all that often, and I was really quite surprised that I managed to happen upon this beer here in Hong Kong. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head to England, like I said. We're going to go to what probably could be considered the heart of England, right in the middle of the country, to Leicestershire. We're going to go a wee bit to the northwest of the city of Leicester to a little place called Colville, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery, who release a number of their beers under the name Tynt Meadow. So this one is the Tynt Meadow Blonde. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is an English style blonde ale apparently. So yeah, an English Trappist blonde ale. Not every day you can say you're going to review one of these, but I thought this would be really interesting to take a little look at. So yeah, the last review I did from these guys was of course the original Tynt Meadow, which was their first beer, and probably that one is most comparable to a Belgian Bruin, but some people say it is like an English strong ale actually, but you can make up your own mind on that. You can go and taste it, but it is pretty nice. They apparently have a bitter these days as well called Quintus, which is quite interesting. So they're obviously doing some lighter beers as well to try and kind of get a little bit more money in and things from the lighter, more drinkable beers, which is good to see. It's good to see that they're actually kind of turning a profit, because the Trappist breweries, of course, their whole mantra is to basically be non-profit, or the profits that they make are reinvested in local charities and things like that. So it's good to see them having a wee bit of business sense and things like that too. But yeah, as I say, very nice to return to these guys. Let's crack on and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. The Tynt Meadow Blonde from the Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery in Colville, Leicestershire, England, one of the Trappist breweries. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery, and we will see about adding more to that list in the future as they release more beers, and we'll have a look at the Quintus as well. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things. That's been added to quite regularly, of course, because we do get some good English beer here in Hong Kong. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about the Abbey first, and then when they got to brewing. So the Abbey, as I've mentioned to you already, is located near Colville in Leicestershire, which you'll find a little bit to the northwest of the city of Leicester itself, and it was formerly part of the parish of Whitwick. So the Mount St Bernard Abbey was founded back in 1835 by Ambrose Liesel March Phillips de Liesel, if I've pronounced that correctly, fingers crossed. He was a local landowner and a Catholic convert who wanted to bring the monastic life to England, and he was apparently attracted to the Cistercians because his family mansion at Garendon had replaced a Cistercian monastery. So the land contained an ancient enclosure called Tynt Meadow, and it was in the nearly derelict Tynt Meadow that the first monks made their home. So they opened a temporary monastery back in 1837 and then a permanent monastery in 1844, and this building apparently still stands today, and the church was consecrated on the 20th of August 1844, which is the feast day of St. Bernard, and then the monastery was granted the status of abbey by Pope Pius IX in 1848, and at this point the first abbot was appointed, and this was Dom Bernard Palmer. So over the years, the monastery has had many famous visitors, and the lands of the monastery were actually going to be disturbed by the building of the M1 motorway, but the British government were successfully petitioned to change the route, and so this never happened. But the buildings of the monastery were listed in 1989 as part of a government review on church buildings, so many old kind of Christian buildings were, of course, listed, which means they can't be played with, basically, throughout England, from what I understand. But the abbey has had a total of 14 abbots during its history, and the current abbot is Norwegian Erik Varden. So until recently, the monks had run a 200-acre dairy farm, but they were forced to close this as a result of falling milk prices. It just simply wasn't profitable anymore. But to replace this income they were losing from the dairy farm, they decided to look at brewing beer. And there were several accounts of the monks within the Tynt Meadow monastery having brewed beer in the 19th century, but they actually managed to resurrect it quite successfully, and they were officially recognised by the International Trappist Association back in 2017. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first beer that I reviewed from these guys, the original Tynt Meadow, it was before it actually had the Trappist label on it. So I must have reviewed this one when I was in Durham in England back in, that would have been 2017 actually. That's interesting. But so far they have 3 beers. They've got the original Tynt Meadow, as I mentioned earlier. That's kind of like a Belgian Bruin, or some people say it's an English strong ale. They've got this one, the Tynt Meadow Blonde, and they've also got the Quintus, which is an English bitter or extra special bitter, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, like I said, these guys are a Trappist brewery, so basically the profits that they make from brewing beer are used to both, keep the monastery afloat and things like that, but anything else that they don't spend on that is given to local charities. That's the kind of mantra of the International Trappist Association. So that is everything I can really tell you about Tynt Meadow Brewery for the moment, or St Bernard Abbey Brewery, to give them the proper name. If you'd like to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done thus far. And no doubt there will be some more. I would love to see these guys have a go at making an English quadruple and triple and stuff like that as well. And it's quite interesting to see a brewery, a Trappist brewery, do English styles of beer, actually, the traditional English stuff. So yeah, as I say, check out all those links in the video description below, but we are going to go on now and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one. As you can see, it is quite similar to what we've seen from Tynt Meadow and Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery before, but I think the shape of the label here, I'm pretty sure that's meant to represent some of the local hills or something, if I remember correctly. And you can see the 3 sort of strikes on the top there, which I think is meant to represent both the Holy Trinity and the windows in the monastery, if I remember correctly. But like I said earlier, this one comes in at 5% ABV. It is an English style blonde ale. It says on the side here, crafted under the watchful eyes of the monks of Mount St Bernard Trappist Brewery, Leicestershire. Our ales combine centuries of tradition with modern sustainable techniques. Our not-for-profit brewery produces ale fit for any occasion, whilst helping to support our community. This blonde ale re-ferments in the bottle, store it in a cool, dark, quiet place, and chill well before serving it gently. So 330ml bottle. This one, I honestly can't remember what I paid for it, but this one was bought at Gur Beer in the One Mall in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. And as I say, I was quite surprised to come across this one. I didn't even know they had released their new beers yet. I knew they were looking at it, but I didn't know that it had actually happened. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's going to have in store for us. I'm very curious about this. We'll need to keep that bottle cap as well for our collection. But yeah, let's have a look at this one and see what we have here. I honestly couldn't tell you what the last blonde ale that I reviewed on the channel was. It was probably from one of the more Scottish traditional breweries, if you like, but the last English blonde I had, I really couldn't tell you. I have to admit as well, one thing I'm a little bit unclear on is the difference between a blonde ale and a golden ale, in all honesty. So yeah, if any of you happen to know that, if there's a particular technical difference, let me know in the video description, the video comment section below. But yeah, you can see this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect of a blonde ale. Before the head disappears, we can see that it's come out with about 1/3 of a finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head. That is of course going to fade away to be a thinner foamy layer and just leave that ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, quite small bubbles on the surface, and you can see they just get a little bit larger as you go kind of further up the head there. But yeah, the colour of the beer is as you would expect as well. It's got that lovely kind of pale golden yellow straw colour, which I think looks great. If you put your fingers behind the glass, you can see this beer does have a little bit of a natural haze to it, which looks nice. Is it using a bit of wheat, this one? No, just barley apparently. I would have thought with the natural haze it had a little touch of wheat in it there. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. 1 or 2 bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, and you can see a few of them just creeping up toward the surface of the beer there as well. But all in all, it looks very, very nice and pretty much in line with what you would expect of a blonde ale or a golden ale, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, not much else we can really say about the appearance of this one. Let's have a little look at the aroma then and see what it has in store for us. I'm very, very curious about this. Ooh, smells pretty nice actually, I have to say that. First impression, very bready leaning golden ale, this one, but it's got a mixture of like smoothness and dryness to it, and just a little touch of sweetness actually, which I think is very nice. Hoppy side of the beer is quite mild in honesty, I would say, and then you've just got that nice little bit of fruitiness there. But I get the feeling this one is intended as a more sort of sessionable, drinkable beer. I do wonder if these guys will go down the route of opening up like a little cafe or something on site, because as far as I could see so far they don't have one yet, but that might be a good move for them. And honestly, it could be quite interesting. But yeah, the aroma of this one is very nice and very inviting. So let's just break it down and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth, if you like. So the backbone of the beer, you've got a little bit of like a fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's wee hints of there's a little bit of a woody character to it, some kind of crackery notes as well. So yeah, the white bready bread crust, the wood, the cracker, and yeah, the way that all goes together I think is pretty nice, but pretty standard as well, I would say. So I think the more that you smell of this beer, the more it gets, the more it shows a little bit of dryness. But definitely on top of that, you've got a really nice, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of wholemeal sort of brown bready character in there. So yeah, there's the white bready bread crust, the wholemeal brown bready character, and then above that you have some like sweeter white bread, I would say. I do wonder if there's a wee touch of like Maris Otter malt in this, but if I remember rightly, these guys use a very local malt source actually. But yeah, it's definitely got a mix of like white bread and brown bread in this one. The white bread is of course a little bit kind of drier, the brown bread has a little bit more kind of sweetness to it, and then yeah, on top of everything else, you've got a good little bit of there's maybe a little hint of a kind of sweet biscuit. So yeah, you've got a little bit of a kind of oily McVitie's digestive biscuit in there, a bit more of a kind of grainy side to the biscuit as well. But yeah, these are all things that you'd kind of expect from a blonde ale of any description really. At the back of the nose you start to get some yeasty character out of this one, and the yeastiness is quite interesting. For me, at the back of the nose, it's giving you a sort of, yeah, there's a wee bit of like brown bread to it, a little bit of cracker, and a little bit of a woodiness. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, a mix of like brown bread, a mix of kind of white bread as well, and a wee bit of a woody crackery sort of thing. So yeah, that's your yeasty side of the beer. So on the hoppy side of things, as I've often said in English beer reviews, or more traditional English beer reviews, for me the English hops, like, you know, the sort of Kent Goldings and stuff like this, they always have this bit of earthy, herbal, and almost slightly woody kind of character to them. I always think English hops actually work a little bit better in porters and stouts and things like this rather than blonde ales. So yeah, I'm quite curious to see how this beer pulls together in that particular regard. But yeah, you can definitely pick up that little bit of inherent English hop character in this one. So there's that little bit of earthiness there. There's a wee hint of like a woody, crackery sort of thing. Some nice floral notes. And yeah, you've got a nice kind of lighter, grassy sort of note at the front of the nose too. The fruity side of this beer, I don't think there's too much else to report on the hoppy side of things. The fruity side of the beer is pretty straightforward as well. There's a little bit of, there's a little touch of a kind of like pear, I would say. So yeah, you've got this nice kind of oily, peary sort of thing to it. A little touch of apricot. Yeah, so pear, apricot, sultana, and yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is quite nice. Maybe a little tiny hint of fresh green apple or something like that. But yeah, pear, apricot, a little bit of sultana, you know, dry white green grapes, and yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything we really need to say about the aroma. Not madly complex, but pretty much a bready leaning golden ale, and really in line with my previous experiences of this particular beer style. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it's time for us to try this one. So yeah, this is the Tynt Meadow Blonde, a 5% English style blonde from what I gather, from the Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery, who release a number of their beers under the name Tynt Meadow, in Colville, Leicestershire, England. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. It's very nice. As I say, it's been a long time since I've tried an English blonde ale, and as a style, you know, it's one that I tend in a way to stay away from a little bit, because as I said, I think English hops just work better with the darker styles of beer. So maybe I have this a little bit of a subconscious apprehension about these beers, but this one's really nicely done. It is kind of giving me what I thought it would in the aftertaste, a bit of, you know, bitterness and dryness and stuff like this, which I think is really quite nice. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think most people would like this. I think this would be very nice on tap, actually. I'm not the greatest fan of cask ale, in honesty, because I really got into beer in Germany. So yeah, it's a difference. You know, you like your beers a bit colder and more crisp and things like that. The English like them a bit kind of warmer, a bit smoother and things like that. This beer probably would work quite well on cask. I think a lot of people would quite enjoy it like that, and it feels like it's maybe been designed for that particular conditioning as well. Yeah, but all in all, a really nicely done beer. So I'll say big thumbs up to the St Bernard, Mount St Bernard, sorry, monks. Right, so let's break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. We'll go to the middle third of the palate as we always do. So, pardon me, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh sort of brown bready bread crust in there. I would say it's more of a brown bready bread crust in the flavour. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you start to get a wee bit more of a kind of there is a little bit of a woody sort of character in there, and that lingers into the aftertaste too. So beyond that, you have a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. So yeah, a little bit of a Jacob's cream crackery type note. And then above that, the next layer up is a kind of wholemeal brown bready character. And the graininess of that wholemeal brown bread sort of lingers into the aftertaste too. That's quite interesting. So, yeah, that little bit of the wee bit of wholemeal brown bread that's in there is really nice. And then yeah, you have the kind of white bready character sitting in there. And the white bready notes in this one are quite interesting because they do have a slight sweetness to them. So yeah, there's a wee bit of sweetness to that, and that lingers into the aftertaste too. But then above the bready side of things, you've got a little touch of kind of biscuit. So you've got a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type quality, and it's the more grainy side that forms the base. But yeah, in the dead center of your palate, you've got that more oily, concentrated biscuit sort of note coming out of the beer. So yeah, I think into the aftertaste you do get a little bit of woodiness and a little bit of graininess coming out of this one. So yeah, again, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we need to say about the middle third of the palate, in honesty. So let's go to the back third of your palate then. So border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you can feel the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread a little bit further up, and there's maybe just a wee touch of drier biscuity, crackery character sitting on top of that. The back of that, or the base of that back third of your palate, and do remember, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, and generally speaking, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the backbone of that middle third of your palate, you can feel the sort of brown bready bread crust in there, which is a little bit drier. Then you get the cracker, the brown bready layer feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Then above that you've got the white bready character, which again feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy, also a bit drier, those two layers too. And then you can just feel above that some of the drier aspects of the kind of biscuity side of the beer creeping over the top of it. And then it's all about the yeasty side of things, just sitting on top of that. So let's have a wee look at those yeasty flavours actually. So for me, the yeasty side of things, it's quite interesting. The yeasty side of this beer is quite nice, and I have to admit, it maybe is just one of those kind of stereotypical things that you expect with it being a Trappist beer. You know, you think Belgian and thus more yeasty. This beer does have a fairly big yeasty character to it, which I think is good. It's kind of in keeping with what you expect of a Trappist beer, as I said. But the yeasty side of this beer at its core, I think it's got this nice oily kind of and sweet brown bready character at its core, and as you move further out from that, it's got a little bit more of a kind of grainy brown bready character as well. Then yeah, there's a real kind of bread crusty character around the very edge of that one. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. The yeasty side of this beer I really do quite like, and definitely yeah, back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. Again, it shows you this typical English hop character, which I do really quite like. And I will add that I'm surprised how much I like that, because of the sort of stereotypical characteristics, if you like, or the inherent characteristics of English hop. As I say, I still think they work better with darker beers. But yeah, in the back corners of your palate then you've got this nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's got a little bit more of a kind of herbally sort of character to it and a wee bit of woodiness, but then yeah, as you come further forward you can feel it progressively becomes more sort of floral. It's not spicy, but it's got a wee bit of oiliness to it and a wee bit of spice into the aftertaste. But round the front curve of the tongue, it's definitely a little bit lighter and more sort of grassy. But again, the green component in this one, generally speaking, I think is quite oily. But that suits the beer. It sort of gives you a wee bit of counterbalance to the kind of dryness that the yeasty side of it offers you. So yeah, some really interesting characteristics to be thought about with this particular beer. So yeah, front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things to round off the flavour section. So yeah, the border region between middle and front third of your palate, you get that little bit of bready build up again. You've got the brown bread on the base, the white bread on top, then a wee bit of an almost crackery note on the very top. The base of the front third of your palate, it's got that nice kind of yeah, it's got that nice sort of white bready, bread crusty character. It's more of a white bready bread crust for sure this time. Then you've got Jacob's cream cracker on top of that, your brown bread, and then your smooth and slightly sweet white bread, and a wee touch of the biscuity character just creeping on top of that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, fruity side of the beer then, what are we getting from that? At the back of that, yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, it's giving you a little bit of a, I'd say there's a lot of kind of sultana out of this one, maybe a very slight touch of date. Yeah, those oily kind of dry white green grapey sort of notes, sultanas. As you move further forward, you start to get a little bit more of a kind of oily, peary kind of character out of this one. Maybe a little bit of dry date and things like that. But yeah, as you reach the very kind of front tip of your tongue, there's maybe just a very slight hint of like a kind of fresh green apple in there. But yeah, these are typical things that we've seen from the likes of Kent Goldings and things like that before. But yeah, fruity side of this beer is pretty nice. It's a really kind of easy drinking one, this. I actually thought that this beer was a bit bigger than it is. I thought the original Tynt Meadow was in a 500 milliliter bottle, but yeah, this is 330 milliliters, this one. So yeah, I think this could, with this one, this probably could do with the half-liter bottle for the retail sales, in all honesty. And that's one thing I would say about it, because it's very easy to drink. But yeah, but I think, as I said, we've said everything we really need to about the flavour of this beer. This is really nice and very, very enjoyable, and you can't really ask for much more from a kind of blonde ale or a golden ale. These beers are meant to be just nice and drinkable, and this beer delivers on that front, so big thumbs up to them there. Let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer, I'd say it's kind of mid-bodied. Carbonation does give you a little bit of a prickle, but the overall feel of this beer is that it's actually quite smooth. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's slightly creamy, but it does actually feel a little bit, it has a little bit of that almost cask-conditioned creaminess to it, if that at all makes sense. But in the, in terms of the IBU of this beer, I think it's a fairly standard sort of 20-ish IBUs. The malt base, like we said, it's a little bit kind of grainy underneath, smoother in the middle, and then a bit sweeter on top. The fruity side of the beer, yeah, nice and quite oily. So, as I say, it delivers on all fronts, and it's a really nicely done golden ale. You can't ask for much more than that. And it does give you that little bit more yeasty character as well, which is kind of in keeping with the impression, pardon me, that at least I have of Trappist ales. They should be that little bit more yeasty and things, I would say. But yeah, all in all, really impressed with this one. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So yeah, this was the Tynt Meadow Blonde, a 5% English style blonde ale from the Mount St Bernard Abbey Brewery in Colville, near Leicester in Leicestershire, in the middle of England. The English Trappist brewery, this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mount St Bernard Abbey as well. And like I said, hopefully we can return to these guys and have a little look at the Quintus sometime very, very soon. But yeah, check out my social media, check out the brewery and Abbey social media, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very soon. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.